I'm a long, long way from home. It's a long, long road I'm on, and the angels hear me cry. Sing me a lullaby, a lullaby.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ampersand Unique Gifts and Home Decor. So when I am not upcycling and thrifting and repurposing items, this is my life. Today's video is going to be part one of upcycled thrifted finds. I started it and they're not taking longer. So you'll have to tune in next week for part two. But I can't wait to show you what I have so far. So let me know which one of these was your favorite thrifted find. All right, our very first project, we lost footage. So I pulled this out from the thrift haul video. I bought a bowl and then we took it out to the shop and my husband drilled a hole in the top so that we could turn it into a cloche to go with this wood round that I thrifted that day. And back in the house, we'll get busy trying to get this little metal label off of here. It has two little tacks that are holding it in, and I thought, well, I'll just grab these little needle nose pliers and pull back, and it would not come off. So I just kind of got hold of it and started to peel it back. What I did not expect is that it was actually super glued on there. So those little tacks were not the only thing holding it in, and those had been glued, and I had a terrible time trying to pry those out as well. So that turned to be just a little bit more challenging than I expected, but finally I did get the little nails out. And now we'll give it a paint job with the Debi's Design Diary Jami Ray Vintage Cottage Color White Linen. It has a built-in sealer, so you want to make sure to stir it and get that sealer mixed in with all the wonderful color pigment that settles to the bottom. And if you're used to using Debi's Design Diary clay-based paint, this one is a little bit thinner because it does have that sealer in it, but it will still give you beautiful, amazing coverage, and you don't have to seal it when you're done. So I'm going to go ahead and give 2 coats to both the wood round and this little wood knob that I found in my stash in the shop. And once I have that done, I'm going to distress it with some 220 sandpaper. It's a little bit harder to distress than the regular clay-based paints because it has that toughness that the sealer gives it, but definitely possible. If this is not your vibe, by all means, you can leave this step out. I just love to make things look like they've been around for a while, and so much that I'm actually then going to follow this process by using the Debi's Design Diary dark wax. And again, that's just going to settle in there in those in the grooves that I made with the sanding or any of the paintbrush marks. The Cottage color has a self-leveler, so I have to admit it really doesn't have much in the way of brush marks. But anyway, I just really want this to have a nice vintage look to it. So then I'm going to use, this is the screw that was in this little knob, so I don't know, I can't remember what it originally would have been on, but I'm going to add a rubber washer there and attach my knob to it. That rubber washer just helps to make sure that it stays good and tight, and I don't have to worry about having that metal smash up against that glass and risk cracking it or making the hole any bigger. But I just got it good and tight. And I have converted a glass bowl, an old wood knob, and a wood round that obviously used to have something else in it into a beautiful cloche. Let me know what you think of my thrift store marriage.
Follow my love, the scent that's in spring air. Follow the moment of the sun. There's a call for new beginnings here. Let the sorrow of yester disappear. Let your body be new.
Grab these cute little pictures at the thrift store, and I am planning on doing something different
and covering up where the picture is. And it's a good thing because it was paper, and the thrift store used packaging tape to hook these together. So obviously, what do you think happens when you put packaging tape over paper? It rips it off. So it's okay here, but it would have been a real bummer if that had been something I had been looking to keep. Anyway, I'm going to try to get as much of it off as I can, and some of it looked like it was kind of peeling up and it might have come off easily. So I just kind of started, picking at it, thinking I might be able to just peel off where it was decoupaged on there. But eventually I resort to using a scraper and just trying to get as much off there I can. And then I just use a piece of sandpaper and sand it smooth as possible. So along with sanding the face there where the paper was, I'm going to take off the hangers, and then I'm going to give the wood a good scuff sand. This is just to give something for the paint to stick to and make sure that there's not anything shiny or anything that's going to prohibit my paint from sticking, because we are going to add our own decoupage. This is Rocycled's decoupage paper, and it is a collection of all kinds of full-size papers that she's had, and I love how she has shrunk them down into these adorable little sizes for projects like this. So we're going to pick what we want to use and cut them out, and then I'm going to use the IOD mold, the frames mold, and we're going to use the DOS clay. This is the first time I've used this particular white clay. I did accidentally buy the gray stone clay that I used in a furniture project in one of my prior videos, but this is the first time I've used the this white clay. So in the mold, you want to go ahead and use cornstarch, and you're just going to put it down in there to keep your clay from sticking, to help it come out better and make sure that it doesn't get stuck in all that beautiful design. I do definitely have way too much clay here, but fortunately IOD molds have this beautiful patented micro rim around them, and you can just use your thumb or an old gift card or the sticks that come with the IOD transfers to smooth it out and then just roll it out. Now, I knew when I did this that the mold was going to be a lot bigger than my area, so I decided that I'm just going to try to cut it, and I'm going to cut it within the design so that I can cut it out of the middle and paste it back together and have it look like one frame. Now, I do want to tell you that this DOS clay is so wet and sticky compared to the IOD clay. So I love the IOD air dried clay. It's what I use almost 100% of the time, but I went ahead and got this just to try something because I didn't want to wait for an order of the IOD clay to come in. So this was where I could just get it, and I'm not a fan, and I know some of you probably use this all the time, and that's great, but I've been so spoiled with the wonderful IOD air dried clay that I was just not thrilled with this one. So I'm going to kind of paste that back together there in the design. I used some water and my paintbrush and my finger and the knife and did everything to try to get that design back in there so it was one cohesive piece. So since we're going to use decoupage paper, I wanted my color to really pop. So I'm going to paint the center of these with our Debi's Design Diary Jami Vintage Cottage color white linen, and I do just give it one good coat. And then I'm going to paint the outside with the Debi's Design Diary clay-based paint in the color Eden. This is one of her new colors from this year, and I absolutely love all things green, so I hurried and bought them all and have been painting things with it so far. But I think it's the perfect color. It looks great for spring. It will, I think it's a beautiful fall color. I think it looks great for Christmas. But anyway, I give the outside 2 coats of this beautiful green. While my molds are still wet, I am actually going to go ahead and paint them with the same color. And I'm doing this separately so that I don't get it on the white paint that I put on the inside where I'm going to decoupage. I like to paint the molds when they're still wet because the paint kind of helps reduce some of the cracking that they do when they dry. And so it's always good to go ahead and paint them. But this, like I said, this clay is so much softer and stickier than the IOD clay, that I'm having a really hard time being light enough that I'm not smashing down that beautiful decor from the frame. So I do kind of just go ahead and put a little bit on there and then go in and put a second coat later. So we're going to go ahead and decoupage our picture in here. I picked 2 of them that were a good size to go in the center that would look beautiful in the frame and kind of go with my theme. But I am having a really hard time getting this frame to actually stick together. It did not want to just stick together with the clay. So I'm hoping that I can glue it. And I'm going to use my Debi's Design Diary Liquid Patina in the color Crystal Clear Chandelier for my decoupage medium. And then I will also use that for my overall sealer of the paint, because Debi's Design Diary clay-based paint, it's very porous. It will be reactivated with water, so you want to make sure that you seal it. So I put my paper down and I hold it in the place, and I put the decoupage medium down on half of it and then peel up and add it to the second half. That way I don't have to worry about it shifting, and I can make sure that it stays where I put it. And then just using my same brush, I put a light coat of the decoupage down on it. Usually I will let it dry before I really worry about getting that overall heavy coat down on there. The over coat. So I am using my Beacon 3-in-1 glue. I will put a link in the description for the products. And guys, I do get just a little bit of a gift from Amazon if you guys use my link to order the products that I use, that I put in there. So just a heads up, it does help me out a little bit if you use my link, if you like some of the products that I use from Amazon. And this glue is my favorite glue. So feel free to give it a try. But anyway, I'm just kind of using a really good layer of glue there, and I'm gonna use that to put my frame back on, which I end up having to do in 2 pieces. Again, it didn't really stick together as well as that I've had in past experience with the other clay. So I kind of press it down just a little bit. It is still it's not dried yet, even though I've painted it and it's been sitting. So it's still a little bit, soft. And here is the second one. I did the same thing, decoupage my paper down, but this one I could not get to stay together at all. So I'm going to glue it down in 2 pieces and push it together and kind of hope maybe as I paint over it that I can fix it. So, spoiler alert, you'll see what I do here coming up.
I was knocked down, heard the countdown through the haze, in the face of defeat, yeah. I was ruled out with no bailout, on my own, all alone, left to bleed out.
So I left it on the counter to dry, and it did shrink up. So the split is even worse where I put the frames together. I just did not do a very good job making that one cohesive frame. And then also where it kind of pulled up from where I had it glued down to the wood piece. So I was really disappointed with how it looked. It just did not look like it was all one piece. And I did actually, it was sitting on the counter, and my 22-month-old grandson wanted to play, and he knew I paint, he sees all the stuff. So I let him just take his finger and the silver gilding wax and kind of paint on there. So you'll see that they can see the silver on it. But anyway, I took my same clay, I rolled out little tiny pieces and kind of made it like I'm adding caulk in there so that I can fix that and have it all be attached to that wood square again. And I put it in the crack there, and then I use a toothpick and my fingernail to work out that design again. So, I'm not just covering the design. Once it dried really well, then I use the sandpaper to make it all smooth. So now it all looks like one piece again. And it could look like it was maybe all carved out of wood or maybe all resin. You'll never know. So I'm just taking my Eden paint here and going to cover the entire piece. And I am actually going to completely cover the inside where the decoupage paper is. That's why I wasn't too worried about the little man coloring it with silver gilding wax. But aside from the fact that I wasted those pieces of that decoupage paper. I'm really not too sad with how it turned out. I think that what we do to fix it ends up just as pretty as the original picture. So we'll go ahead and get this all painted and get it in there. I did only use one coat, so it didn't take much to do the coverage here. But I'm going to paint both of them with one solid coat. Once my chalk paint had fully dried, I went ahead and used my liquid patina to seal it in really well. So I'm just going to do both of them really well. I put it in a bowl so that I don't accidentally contaminate my entire package of my liquid patina with any of the green paint. But I'm using this IOD transfer. I absolutely love it. I think those yellow roses are absolutely beautiful. I'm going to find a way to just frame those. But meanwhile, we're moving on to the smaller pieces. This has several sheets, and I think there's like 3 or 4 different sizes of the flowers so that you can use them for just about any project that you can think of. So we're going to pick out that beautiful off-white, aka white rose, and the pink one. And then I'm going to cut them to size that will go in there. I'm just marking it with my fingernail so that when I pull it out and cut it, I know exactly where to cut it. I wanted to add a little background. I decided that the flowers kind of disappeared on that green. So now I have just printed this out on regular copy paper. It's from the Graphics Fairy. I think that's the right thing. And it's just a letter that has that aged look and has the old script. To be honest, I think it was a Halloween letter, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to save the extra and I can use it in future projects. But I just ripped out a piece so it had that nice organic side. I didn't want it to be cut with the scissors and risk it not be perfect. So this way it kind of accounts for it being imperfect. And using my same liquid patina for a decoupage medium, we're going to decoupage that right in there. And then once that has dried really well, because I don't want to risk that any of my transfer does not stick, so I allow that to dry completely, then I go ahead and apply my transfers.
We need more than hopes and wishes for us to make it through the night. Stormy weather, weary eyes, hope to make it through the night. Before this night is over, I will guide you home. All this time you thought we'd never pay the price.
So many times I don't show you guys this, and it's the actual finishing of things. I really like to make sure that everything looks completely finished, and I don't have the back of something, the underneath of something that isn't finished or has paint, you know, kind of around the edges and isn't clean. So what I'm doing here is I'm using, this is self-adhesive velvet, and I'm just tracing around there, and this is my favorite thing to use, and I'm going to cut it out perfectly and then put it on the back. Sometimes if it isn't perfect, you can either use a blade around the edge, or a lot of times I just prefer to use sandpaper. I just pick up that 220 sandpaper that I already had, and I found out here that it is not perfectly square. And then I will just kind of pull down a little bit, but it depends on what you have it on, of course, because you don't want to scrape the sides if, you know, if it's not being distressed. Oh my goodness, words are hard today. What is going on? And so I put the little hanger back on top. I threw my golden rule and now I got it. But this is Debi's Design Diary Golden Rule, and it is a gold gilding wax. And I just felt like it needed a little extra to bring out that beautiful detail. I mean, that's even with me filling it with clay and having to put it back together, it still brought out that beautiful detail that I called decor earlier. And so then I'm just using the same brush that I used for the gold, and I'm using some dark wax just to get in the grooves. And I'm really almost out of this wax, but I wanted to age a little bit. I kind of went just a little bit on the paper, but not much, but kind of in the corners there. And I think that my update looks as beautiful as the original one I had planned. Let me know if you think it turned out okay in the end.
Come on, soft, turn the key and cooler on. Push a pause for relief. Free pass, you don't even have to ask.
Our next set of projects are some frames that I picked up at an auction, and I cut out a little yellow round, but I'm going to paint it white because I'd rather have that white background because we're going to be decoupaging over top of it. This one, when I went ahead to do today, I decided that it would make more sense to just do it out of something white. So it's actually the back side of the cover of one of my transfer books. And I'm using my beacon glue to just glue that down in there so it's all, very strong. Very strong hold as opposed to just decoupaging it on top of that metal. And so the other pieces are these beautiful, ornate, heavy metal. I don't know what they're made out of, but they're heavy frames. These two match perfectly. And that one actually has glass in it, so it's not just a plastic. You see kind of some reproduction versions of these that just have plastic. And then these are kind of like, it's a silky, shiny cloth-like material, and it's puffy, and it looks like they were $6.95 at some point. I bought the entire lot at an auction, and I don't know if they paid $6.95 or not, but anyway, I paid $5 for the entire set. And I'm going to paint over this with my Cottage color because, of course, it doesn't require any kind of sealing, and it only takes one coat. You can see how well that's going over top of it. And I paint all three of these ones that have that little fabric design in there. It was very faded. It wasn't in very good shape, and I'm going to give it a new look. So using my Rocycled decoupage paper, I picked some that would fit well in there. I wanted it to be big enough that it covered everywhere in there. There were a lot of beautiful designs, but they were rectangle and they weren't big enough to really fit in there. So I picked the two designs that both had, they had a key in them. So I thought, well, that kind of gives it a little bit of a common theme here. And I used my fingernail to push down and measure where it needed to be. And then I cut around that mark. So this is actually a totally different canister of that liquid patina. This is the one that I left out in the shop and it froze. Yeah, not really a good idea. Make sure you do not leave those outside and that they don't freeze. But I was able to still use it. I mean, it worked really well. It just is kind of goopy. It's like that child's paste. I don't know if you guys remember the paste that had a stick in the lid, and anyway, that's what it was like. So I just go ahead and push down everywhere with my brush gently so that I can make sure that it adheres very well. And then I picked this one also. It had that key. This is the first one I picked, and I picked it because it had the butterflies and the key, because there are butterflies all around this little gold frame. They don't actually match identically, even though they both do have butterflies on them. They're a little bit different. And then I'm using this wonderful farmhouse rooster, and I'm decoupaging right over top of whatever that cushiony thing is that was shoved in this frame. And I just going to stick my paste on there. I'm using that same logic where I put it down there, I hold it with one hand, peel it back, and attach it, and then while still holding it, I decoupage the other side. That way I know that my paper doesn't shift. And I just shove it right down in there with that paper all still out, and then I pull the paper off as once it's dry. Then I pull that paper off of it. Here I'm going to use my gold gilding wax, and I'm going to go ahead. This one had a little bit of wear, so I'm going to use that to bring it back to life here. And I do both of them so that they match, because they actually were a little bit different. So I went ahead and used that gold gilding wax so that now the pair of butterfly frames matches. And then I'll use my black velvet to finish out the back of each one of these frames.
I'm aware of the boss that works created today. When you told me that sure there's a way. The water's so still and my pain has gone away. The air is much cleaner after it rains. Follow my love, the scent that's in spring air. Follow the movement of the sun. There's a call for new beginnings here. Let the sorrow of yester disappear. Let your body be new.
And our fourth project, I am so sorry because my camera had died and I didn't even realize it, but I used the IOD Transfer Wanderer and applied these beautiful flowers on this mini bundt pan. It was definitely a bit of a challenge because of the shape, but overall I love the way it turned out. I think it makes the most beautiful little bowl that you could put on your counter and display whatever you like. Our fifth and final project for this video is this beautiful copper planter, and it has these porcelain handles. I think it's so pretty, and I am using a Redesign by Prima. It's called Delicate Flowers or Delicate Fleur, and I'm just cutting them out. They're all just different kinds of flowers, and I'm cutting out all the ones that have kind of a same in size, same in color palette, and they're the ones that I think will look the most beautiful on this copper. So once I start cutting them, I kind of just decide the placement and off I go. If you're not familiar with using transfers, so whether you're using the Iron Orchids designed IOD transfers or you're using Redesign by Prima, they're the same idea and you can cut them apart. You don't have to use them all together in one picture, or if you would like, you can roll them all out and apply it as the one full sheet. But you just use the applicator stick that comes with every single transfer, so you always get one, and you start to press down as it kind of is beginning to adhere to your item. You can peel back your plastic sheet a little bit. If it's not completely connected, then you just go ahead and put it back down and rub some more, and you just keep going until you have completely applied it to your wall, dresser, planter, whatever you're putting it on, your bundt pan. And then you kind of use that plastic sheet that it came on. I just use that to burnish it down in there. And what that means is just making sure that even if the outside edge applied, but the inside isn't really stuck, when you rub it on there, then that will help to make sure that it is actually adhered everywhere. Once I have all my flowers on there, I want to go ahead and add some greenery, and I am just using some leftover styrofoam. I keep any of it that's of any size because it's just a really cheap way to use what you have and not buy anything else. I know Florifoam isn't necessarily that expensive. You can get it at the Dollar Tree, but I mean, why not use this? We already have it. So I just kind of cut it to size, push it down in, fill in some of the gaps to make sure that it's really tight so it doesn't come loose. And then I cover it with I have some greenery, it's almost like fabric moss that I will use to cover it completely so you cannot even see that white foam. If you felt better painting it, I have that beautiful green clay-based paint that I could color it with. But I am just here, I had to cut a piece that was sticking up a little too tall, but I'm using several different pieces. I want all these different textures, so it's all the different kinds of greenery that I have, and I'm just poking it down in there and working it around. I have that little plant that I pulled them all loose, and now I'm just using some toothpicks to poke it down in around the edge just to continue to add that texture of all the different kinds of greenery. So, you don't have to use it as it comes. You can cut pieces apart, and usually I think that's the best way to do it. I think it looks so much more realistic when you break them apart and you don't leave it in the bundle as it comes. So I'm just going to continue to poke these around here to fluff this up, make it very full. Let me know if you like the planner update, and let me know in the comments which one of today's projects was your favorite.
At first I didn't think about it.
At first I thought whatever, yeah. At first I thought I'd work around it. I'd work around it. But you turned out to be so different.